My guest today is Rob McLean. He's the Vice President of Data, AI, and Automation for technical sales here at IBM, and I'm absolutely happy to have him. And if there is background noise, I apologize. We were actually at the IBM TechXchange conference. We went off somewhere where might be a little bit quieter, so just want to apologize in advance for that, but we're going to do our best. So I just wanted to kick it over to Rob, let him introduce himself, and tell us a little bit more about what it is that he does today.
Thanks, Josh. So yes, my name is Rob McLean. I am the Vice President of Data, AI, and Automation Technical Sales for IBM. I cover what is currently our national market. So it's a collection of customers across all of the United States, continental United States, actually all 50 states, and where we serve our customers by solving their business-related problems with IBM software technology. Specifically around data and AI and IT automation technologies.
And I know you've been IBM. I believe you said 27 years. So there's a lot of moving parts there, probably a lot of different roles. But just curious if you could kind of go through maybe a brief history, kind of your career, how you got started, and kind of leading up to where you are today.
Yes, I'll fast forward through the kindergarten years and start.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, maybe some good stories there. I don't
know. So I actually started, I graduated with a finance degree at Michigan State University. As I was graduating and interviewing for finance jobs, I realized that I wasn't going to enjoy those jobs. So much to my parents' chagrin, I maybe had wrongly selected a major. But I got a great opportunity. There's a company that's no longer around called Electronic Data Systems, headquartered out of Dallas, right? Went by the name EDS. They hired all sorts of people to do mainframe application development, right? So they hired music majors and math majors and engineers who really didn't have any programming experience, and brought you into a business and technical training class. And so they taught you things like COBOL and JCL and PL1, how to develop and maintain applications on a mainframe. They had a number of very large customers who outsourced all of their mainframes to EDS. And so I worked on the Chevrolet account. So Chevrolet World Headquarters, we had, in fact, all of General Motors at the time had outsourced their mainframe applications to EDS. So I was deployed there. So I got to start being a programmer right from the very beginning without any real aspirations to do so. As I worked through that role for a couple of years, I got some really interesting opportunities. I was asked to work on this back in 1994. So believe it or not, there was a time when the internet wasn't around. But I was the first application developer on www.chevrolet.com. So I was able to deploy a website. It was very fancy, right? It's a very nice brochure with some nice pictures of cars. And then
take about 10 minutes to load the full page.
Yes, exactly right. And boy, we thought we were really something when the next year we did a dealer locator app where you put in your area code and it would actually give you the closest dealer, right? That was a very big deal back in 1994. So through those experiences, I got experience with Lotus Notes as well, which is how I eventually moved to IBM. Came to IBM as a technical specialist, helping customers with Lotus-related issues.
And that's like an email. That was an email, kind of like Gmail or Outlook, but
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it had more technology around that. It really started out as a document-centric database with built-in workflow, built-in security, and application development platform, really. And email is a part of that, which then email really became the killer app, right? So it became email wars. But so that whole technology is now over with. We sold that whole bit of technology off. So I came in as a specialist. I did a couple of years as a specialist. Then I moved to an architect role. Was one of the first 75 software architects inside of IBM when we created that role. And then I moved into a leadership position in data and AI. And I've been doing some level of data or some level of leadership positions inside of IBM since then. Always in tech sales, though. So all 27 of my years here, always in tech sales. I've had probably, I had 4 or 5 different first-line manager experiences, 4 or 5 second-line manager experiences, a number of director roles, and now, 3 or 4 vice president roles through those 27 years.
So something that comes to my mind, so, you've been here 27 years. I know things have obviously changed, and obviously IBM was around for a long time before you were here as well. So just in your experience, last 27 years or even before that, how do you feel like IBM has continued to, stay relevant, stay ahead of the game in a lot of ways, or coming up with new ideas? Like a lot of companies have gone by the wayside over the years, especially one that's been around this long, especially in technology fields. How do you feel like they're able to stay relevant?
Great question. I think in two ways. One, there's organic development. You see a product or a need, right? And then you envision it and you create it and go out and sell it to the marketplace. And if there's value to the customers, there's value in the marketplace, then that drives value back to IBM, right? And helps you go and do your next project. The second way is acquisitions, right? Where you see a market niche or you see an area that's really well served by an up and coming company, and rather than build a competing bit of technology that does essentially the same thing, you procure that technology and bring it in and integrate it with your other suite, right? That's predominantly been how we have kind of advanced technology-wise, right? I think the one really nice thing for our IBMers is that our senior leadership has never wavered on the focus of we are a business-to-business company. We had a few experiments a long time ago in trying to be in the consumer market, right? And we've kind of pulled back on that. We are a business to business. So we are helping large enterprises with their technology issues. And so that focus, right, has kind of kept us on the straight and narrow, right? And then I also think we have a bunch of really, really insightful people in our strategy and development areas who see market trends and who see things well before they're even being talked about and get us on the path to go there, right? Obviously not always 100% correct, not always directionally accurate, but by and large, they've done a really nice job in keeping IBM positioned at what is going to help our big company, our big company customers be successful with technology.
So this is kind of a continuing that thought, kind of a spin-off question. I'm thinking, of artificial intelligence, of AI. That's obviously on everybody's mind today. What are your thoughts on as far as how long IBM has been in that game versus where they're at today? Because so many people, I think when they think of AI, they don't think of IBM, but really, IBM's been around for a very long time in this space.
Agreed. I think we're really starting to get the name recognition now with IBM on Gartner and other places that are recognizing IBM as a leader, and you can't defy the statistics. In terms of productive installed AI solutions, IBM has the most of anybody that's out there. Our assistant technology has been a rock solid leader in this space since its inception, right? So I'll go back 5 years and say, 5 years, we're the 800-pound gorilla in that assistant space, right? And that's really been a great value provider for our customers. And now with the advent of generative AI, we've certainly been on the forefront of that. We've been a little quieter about it. And I think, largely OpenAI captured the world's imagination about what generative AI could be when they put out the ChatGPT application and allowed everyone to utilize it, right? And so that sparked this fire and put OpenAI right front and center in the public consciousness. But again, if you're looking at business to business, people that are running large enterprises, they know that they need to have it governed, and they need to know that it's going to be trusted, and they know that whatever they build and whatever they train isn't going to be used by their vendor for other purposes other than what it was created for. And they have that trust over 100 years with IBM. They have that trust with us, and that's leading to some great conversations, some great implementations, right? So I think it's starting to be reflected in the industry analyst papers now that IBM is a leader in this space.
And the stock prices as well.
And the stock prices as well, I think it's a great point. But, look, you go to your mailbox and your neighbor across the street comes out, they're going to talk about ChatGPT and they're going to talk about Microsoft Copilot because they end user applications, right? But if you go to a CIO conference, they're going to talk about IBM.
Right. That makes sense. Once again, I kind of keep spinning off these same questions instead of starting a new train of thought. So we're here at IBM TechXchange conference. So pretty much anyone here is pro IBM. So you're probably not going to get a question like this here. But let's say you're somewhere else, someone walks up and they say, "Oh, you work at IBM. That's legacy. That's old stuff." How do you respond to that?
Well, I take it as a compliment, right? Some very large percentage of the world's transactions still run on IBM equipment, right? IBM infrastructure. And when there is a departmental problem, to solve a problem for 10 people, there's a lot of companies that can do that. To solve a problem for 10 million people, there's not a lot of companies that can do that, right? And so, yes, we are very, very involved in legacy data estates, legacy infrastructure estates, and we still have groundbreaking and leading technology in those areas. So yes, we do have our foot in there. We also have incredible partnerships with AWS and with Microsoft, right? Leveraging the two biggest cloud hyperscalers. And we are running thousands of installed productive IBM software applications for our customers on those hyperscaler platforms.
And I would like to dig into that a little bit because I think that's so fascinating to me. So you have people like Microsoft, Amazon, whoever else. They are competitors, but then at the same time, they're playing together with IBM, and I've always found that to be very interesting. I mean, because obviously it's beneficial for both parties, but I think you're going to touch on it. But I just want to point that out and get you to dig in that a little bit.
Yeah, coopetition, right? It's a wild world we live in, and many companies, many enterprises have made a enterprise cloud decision that they're going to major on, and infrastructure vendors and software vendors need to be able to run on those cloud platforms. Now we're also entering an area in which cloud costs are spiraling rapidly, and so customers are needing to protect themselves either by pulling some of that back off of the cloud and going into a data center, an on-prem data center, or they're having applications across platforms, right? Which then creates complexity and creates layers and creates a management problem of, gee whiz, if I have applications on AWS and on Azure and on Google or whatever, right? Then you now have to manage those applications across all of them in a seamless way, right? With security, with data integrity, all of that, right? And that opens up vendors or opportunities for vendors like IBM because we do have technology in that area, right? So also, when it used to be just a purely competitive battle with Microsoft, we mentioned Lotus Notes and Outlook, right, back in the day. Very religious battle. DB2 and Oracle, right, very religious battle. Those still exist and those still happen, right? However, in an infrastructure world where IBM solutions run large percentages of certain enterprises, large enterprises, large businesses, it's very advantageous to the customer for IBM and AWS and IBM and Microsoft to work together to provide the best value to the customer. And that's really what drives that coopetition, right? It's good for everybody in that ecosystem for us to be able to work and play well in that new sandbox. And I think it's really proven to be remarkably successful in providing great value for our customers.
And I found that to be very fascinating as well, because I mean, obviously you think of any very large enterprise, they are not going to have 100% of their software, their infrastructure, whatever. It's not going to be one vendor. It's going to be all over the place. So I think that is so smart from IBM's side to be like, we're going to embrace that. We're going to build on that. And that ties back to, the stories with watsonx. We have our 4 key pillars, and one of those is openness, right? It's, we're embracing open source. We're embracing also the ability you want to deploy it wherever you want, right? It's not just on-prem. It's not just on the cloud. You have it wherever you want. Kind of want to get your thoughts on a little bit of that as well. I know you kind of already touched on it. But.
Yeah, right on. And there are so many more opportunities out there for value, right? If you look at companies that maybe weren't front and center of people's minds, Salesforce as an example, right? Salesforce is everywhere now, and we use it at IBM, right? It's an incredible CRM solution and keeps expanding its capabilities, keeps expanding in the number of users that they have. And we are working with them to embed IBM AI technology in there to make their solutions more effective for their customers, right? At the same time, we're deploying those solutions on their cloud, right? And we have AI solutions in which you could take Salesforce data. I'm not saying that you should do this, but companies are analyzing, how they're approaching their customer base, and they're taking those out into analytic tools and doing those things. They can do that on any cloud, right? Because IBM technology will run on any cloud, right? So it's a very symbiotic relationship, and there's just every day there's new opportunities, hundreds of new opportunities for us to investigate and leverage those partnerships for the ultimate goal of serving our customers better.
Absolutely. So this is going to be maybe a hard question to answer. When you think about AI, there are so many use cases out there. Do you have a favorite, just of the use cases you've seen? You have a favorite or a couple of favorites? Or even the ones that you think bring the most value to the customer?
Wow. Yeah, so there's so many cool use cases out there. Let's see, do I have a favorite? So we've done some investigative work with. I don't know if you know anything about traumatic brain injuries. Um, the you and I could fall down and have the fairly similar injury, and yet could have completely different outcomes on our recovery. And it's still largely a very there's a lot of mystery left there, right? And you see it every day in the NFL with CTE and concussion protocols and things like that, right? And so a lot of large medical research hospitals are starting to work together to pool data so they have a greater pool of data to kind of start doing analysis on and learn the many thousands, if not millions, of variables that could impact that recovery to provide those different outcomes, right? And how they can change that. So bringing all that data together and doing that research on the data science around it is really fascinating to me, and the ability to provide great outcomes for those TBI patients is really, really neat. I think we've also done some things with opioid prediction, right? Many counties and hospitals have only a certain amount of resources, right? Where do you put the Narcan? Where do you put your counseling resources and things like that? Where do you deploy them? Because you only have so many. And if you can start doing predictions of where those opioid overdoses are going to happen, right, then you can kind of focus on that from a prevention and from a treatment perspective. And that's starting to deliver real, tangible results in people's health.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, in my time at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, my last 2 years there, I was actually in the pharmacy analytics department. So we actually had opioid reporting that we did, and you would look at the number, and it was just, I mean, it's honestly awful as far as just the people abusing that, the people that are dealing with that, the families impact. I mean, it's insane. And of course, the insurance companies, the effect that it has on them as well, and the hospitals. So, yeah, that's huge. I mean, I know that's a huge crisis. I live in Tennessee, and it's a bad problem. It's a bad problem there. I mean, I know it's everywhere, but
it is. And if we can maximize the resources we do have, right, and make a positive difference in someone's life, that's an amazing use of technology.
So, I'll kind of jump off of that as well. So we're talking about what your favorite use case is. So this may not be your favorite, but when you think of what is one that a company could, like, we have this one thing we want to do with generative AI. We want to start small, kind of baby steps, dip our toes in the pool, but we want something that's kind of quick, but we have a great ROI, or a pretty fast ROI. What do you think? What comes to mind on that?
Assistant technology, AI digital assistants, and it's not chatbots. Right. That is gone. Right.
I tell people all the time, like, don't call it a chatbot.
Right. We've passed that. Right. It's a digital assistant, and if you do not have one embedded in either your internal website or on your external website, it's very fast and easy to get great effectiveness. Right. We're seeing this with universities as an example. Right. Embedding. They started with a student chatbot for you go to a large college like Michigan State University, 50,000 undergrads. Campus is a couple miles by a couple of miles, so hey, where's the chemistry building, right? Then you can have an assistant that tells you that. Where, what office hours does Professor McLean keep, right? And where are they located? Those sorts of questions are great for students, right? But it also can start to bridge the gap in between prospective students and attracting more people to the university. Hey, do you allow dual crediting? What are will my AP credits that I took in high school, will those transfer to Michigan State University, and ask very specific questions, right? Provide value and hopefully increase revenue for the university. And then, there's a safety aspect. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of mental illness that's out there right now in various levels, right? And some people, get lost in large universities, but be able to provide a safe first place for that person to go is like, hey, I don't have any friends. I'm not sure I like it here. And then to be able to manage that situation and either provide some value back about, hey, what are your hobbies? What would you like to do? There's a club over here of people that like to do these things, right? Maybe you could go, attend one of these club meetings. The next one's on Wednesday, right? Or it could be, if it's more, again, you don't want it to be too big brothery, but you could take that information and have a counselor reach out to that person and just say, hey, do you want to talk about anything, right? So there's a lot of, to me, and there's a lot of enterprise applications of the assistant technology as well, and now applying the generative AI capability on top of it. Things as simple as, I know you're a Cognos expert, right? And
expert. I'm putting that in finger quotes, but
Well, I mean, how many users of Cognos did you have at your former employee?
several hundred, I'd say. Yeah.
My guess is that you got a lot of questions, how-to questions, and varying levels. If you could deploy an assistant for your 200 Cognos users that was trained on all the Cognos documentation
Right.
and for specifics to that environment as well, hey, how do I do this? Where do I go look for that? And it would guide you step by steps. Or if it was something simple, you could even automate the actual outcome of that, right? There's just a billion of those use cases out there in the enterprise space.
Absolutely.
So the assistant technology for me is a no-brainer place to start.
Yeah, and we'll have to dive in a little bit to say, some people, I feel like when they think of a virtual assistant, they think about question asked, question answered, and it ends right there, right? So, so a lot of people I feel like don't realize there's a lot more than that. So when we think about like the virtual assistant that IBM offers, you have that, but you also have the ability to do things, to take action, and even connect that with automation on the back end to go even deeper. Not only are you interacting with this virtual assistant, but it's connected to, let's say, your HR system like Workday, and when you say, I want to transfer this employee, it's doing it, actually. You never even leave that screen. You're still in one place. So I just want to see if you want to expound on that as well.
Well, I mean, you covered it. You nailed it, right? The ability, that's where we're going, right, is the ability to take those actions and save people time and productivity. And, I don't know if you're hearing all of the agent, right? The future of AI is an agent technology, right? So it's going to be able to take that action. It's going to have memory as well, right? So it's going to learn as you go, and the things that you're doing, it's going to be able to repeat those and understand that that's what you want to do, right? Confirm with you that that's what we want to do. But the ultimate, taking that action and increasing the productivity is huge.
So I'm gonna go in a different direction. So right now we're sitting in Mandalay Bay. We're in Las Vegas, like I mentioned earlier, the IBM TechXchange conference. I wanted to just see. I'm sure you've been to Vegas a couple times. Do you have any fun Vegas stories or any interesting Vegas stories?
Wow.
Well, that are appropriate to share.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Well, that limits the universe of stories. I would say one entertaining and totally Vegas story is we were going from. I think it was actually going from here to Paris for dinner. And so we took a cab and got in the cab. 4 of us got in a cab. And we're stopped at a light on Las Vegas Boulevard on the Strip. The cabbie turns up the radio as loud as it'll go. It's an Elvis song. He hops out of the cab and starts juggling in the middle of the street. Meanwhile, all 4 of us are looking at each other like, is he going to get back in the car? And, where's the camera? Are we being punked here or anything else? And the light actually changes, so now people are honking, but he hasn't finished his act yet. So, a little uncomfortable, but yeah, he finally gets back in the cab and then drives us to our destination.
So what was his end game there?
I really have no idea. He didn't seem all that, I don't know whether this is his thing, or he hadn't thought it through, or it was starting a new thing. He didn't ask us for anything, so I'm not sure what his play was. It was just very, very odd.
So there wasn't a tip hat or jar?
There was not.
Okay.
There was not. In fact, it kind of, put us in a bad spot. We're in the middle of the intersection getting honked at, right? Right. It's just taking longer than it needs to, so for us, it wasn't a positive.
So I know, right now when we're recording this, it's October 22nd. So Halloween's coming up. I don't know if you're a Halloween fan. I don't know, but if you could have, let's say money, time, whatever's not an issue. You could have any costume in the entire world. What would that costume be? Like, you're like, this is the ultimate Halloween costume for me.
Wow.
And I'm talking professional grade, like you look like you stepped off the movie set or, whatever.
Yeah. Man. I don't know. I've always been a fan of Cookie Monster from Sesame Street. So
that's a great answer.
I think I'd probably rock Cookie Monster if I could.
That would actually be really cool. I mean, I'm picturing seeing like a life size, very authentic Cookie Monster walking down the street. I mean, that person is probably up the street here in Vegas. Go get that costume from them. Well, when you were a kid, so let's say you're 8 years old, what would your ultimate costume be?
Football player for sure. The shoulder pads, the helmet. Now they have so many cooler helmets, right? It wasn't the same when I was a kid, but man, now NFL, legit NFL jerseys and helmets and stuff like that. Can't be any cooler than that.
And what team would that have been back then?
Oh, the Lions, of course.
The Lions, okay.
Yeah, I mean, everyone growing up in the 70s, right? The Steelers were a big deal, winning all the Super Bowls and things like that. But yeah, it's always been a Lions fan.
And if I'm thinking correctly, and if I get this wrong, my father-in-law is going to be upset at me. The Lions were originally in Portsmouth, Ohio. Is that correct? Before they came to Detroit?
You know what? That's a good question. I didn't know that.
Because my father-in-law, he's from Ohio, but he grew up as a Lions fan. I believe because when he was little, they were originally in Ohio, and then they moved over. So if you're a Michigan, Ohio State, on the college football side, that's kind of an interesting little thing there. But I have a love in my heart for the Detroit Lions. I will say, I mean, they went through so much garbage for so long, and I've been pulling for them. I mean, I was so mad when they lost, postseason last year. I was really pulling for them. But I would love to see them win a Super Bowl. This has nothing to do with technology, but I just
I appreciate that.
I do. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's fantastic. So
he is.
Okay, I'll get back on track. Let's see. I have my questions here. So we talked about IBM and competitors a little bit. So what would you say is the best, in your mind, the best collaboration between IBM and a competitor?
We have a tremendous relationship with AWS right now, so Amazon Web Services, and there is an IBM cloud, right? So we do compete directly on cloud to cloud services, but we have such a great partnership with AWS. They actually help us fund proofs of concept of a joint solution on the AWS cloud. So to me, that's a great example of two large competitive entities coming together, figuring out what the right approach is, and delivering that proof of concept to prove out that two companies can work together, but the technology actually works and solves the customer's business problem. To me, that's kind of, when that works out, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And what is an area that comes to mind when you think of where IBM has a very clear-cut, distinct edge over the competition in some area? I personally, I'll just share my answer. I feel like in the AI governance space, we have an edge over a lot of people in that space. I was told by a client, she was I don't know of anyone else who has what you guys have in the AI governance space. Speaking of Watson X.governance, she's like, I don't think anyone has this level of software today that can do all of this. They have pieces of it, but not all of it. So I was curious what you.
Yeah, look, you could go down all the technology areas and talk about the benefits and the competitive differentiators. Our track record of innovation in the infrastructure space is really unparalleled over numbers of years, right? So our server technology, whether it's on the Z or the Power series, right, those are typically very, very well differentiated. That no one else does Z series mainframe reliability, right? No one else does that. I think AI governance, certainly we are leading edge there, and we're dragging the rest of the world with us, and all of the other vendors are starting to come around to this governance message, right, where they haven't heard it from them before. I think we're also highly differentiated in the operations space, right? The automation of the operations, IT automation. Our ability to work with customers to predict their cloud costs and to reduce their cloud costs with the Apptio acquisition, as well as the ability to, across application, across platform, to make changes to the infrastructure for the price performance trade-offs that the customer wants, is really highly differentiated and provides incredible value to our customers. I could go on and on, right? But to me, those are a couple of big areas. And frankly, quantum computing, which isn't something that's on everyone's desk right now.
Right.
I think IBM is the undisputed leader in quantum computing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to make sure I'm watching the clock. I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. I know you have a busy day ahead of you. So I think I have maybe just two questions, and we'll try to wrap it up.
No worries.
So what do you think is the future, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but the future of AI and automation? Next couple of years, where do you think that's going?
Well, in the short term, agent technology, right, as we talked about, is going to be where everything is driving to. Long term, it's got to be about the value and it's about the return, right? So I've been seeing more articles and more conversation around, I think what it's called productivity leakage. So this time that you save people with AI technology, are they putting it back into the business or are they doing something else with it, right? So In terms of the returns coming back, that's going to be a huge change, right? Everything that we're going to be evolving towards putting more return back to the company and that for that investment, right? I think we're going to see a lot more focus on the business side of this, right? And CIOs hopefully won't be questioning why they're spending money in the AI space. I think I'm not a terribly good prognosticator in terms of technology evolutions. So I'm going to stay away from any hot take on where AI is going to go. Other than that, I don't know. I don't have a really good handle on where it'll end up and all of that. I do think we're going to see a lot more use cases for medicine, for improving personal outcomes. I think we're going to hopefully see more investment from states to use automation and use AI technology to save time and compress processes. You have people that, I'm just making this up, apply for benefits, and well, this is an actual use case, but they apply for benefits. It's the worst time in their life, right? Maybe it's a single mother and her, lost her job, and they need some sort of assistance for some period of time. It's the worst time in their life. They don't need to wait 6 or 8 weeks for an approval process. They need to have it 6 or 8 minutes so that they can get their life back on track, right? So hopefully we'll see governments and agencies using this technology to eliminate some of compress the times for some important processes. Automation-wise, we're going to continue to see mundane tasks automated, and I think that'll be a really good thing. People are just going to have to realize that those mundane jobs aren't going to be there, so we're going to have to, as people, upskill ourselves and be more current and be more valuable, rather than just pushing buttons, passing papers, or that's a kind of maybe a bad caricature of a lot of process-oriented roles, right? So we'll have to continue to evolve.
So my last question, I think I'm not promising I won't come up with something else. My last question is, someone comes up to you and they're like, someone younger, and they're like, I maybe not IBM, just in general, I want to get into technical sales. Like, that's something I think I would really enjoy. What's your kind of career advice to that person who wants to get into that field?
Great question, and I can talk for a couple of days on this, so you'll have to guide me. I think the one that they want to be in tech sales is really a positive. It's a huge positive. If they understand about the marriage of technology and a business problem, that's a real connect that needs to happen, right? And I think you talked about that earlier on in your background. So that's a huge positive. I think communication skills are incredibly important. So if you want to be in this profession, you need to hone your communication skills. You don't have to go out and do TED Talks, and you don't have to do Toastmasters, but you do need to ensure that you're communicating effectively, and the best way to do that is to practice. Especially as an early career professional, you should be presenting every day. And it doesn't have to be long, full-blown hour presentations. You should practice your 5-minute elevator pitches, your 15-minute just the highlights, and then your full hour-long presentations and demonstrations, right? So you definitely need to hone those skills. The other thing I would say is that tech skills win. It's like, I think it was Al Davis said, speed kills in the NFL. Deep tech skills win in the marketplace, right? So as much as you are capable of, you need to be investing in yourself to deepen your technical skills. So whether it's an IBM specific product or a product area that you want to focus on, in addition to the whole market area, because competitive knowledge of where you fit is also very important. But those are the 3 things that I would have you work on earlier on in your career. As you progress in your career and there's things that you want to go do, you have enough experience now, and there's other things that you want to experiment. We are very, very lucky to work for IBM in that it's one of a few companies on the planet where you can have 3 careers worth of jobs and experiences inside of IBM and never have to leave your network, never have to go start over again, right? You can bring all that experience with you. And so there's a lot to consider here. And I think the advice I always give to people as you're considering where do you want to go in your career and what do you want to do is that you have to start with a couple of very simple questions. I always ask people to, on one sheet of paper, say, where do you want to be in 5 years? And then flip the paper over. The question is, where do you want to be in 10 years? And you should make notes to yourself. It can be inclusive of a job title. It could be where you want to live, like what you want to do. I want to serve customers. I want to I want to make as much money as I possibly can. I want to, work with this technology. You might have small children and you're like, I want to have a job in which I don't travel a lot, but I'm really challenged technology or whatever it is, right? So you put those things down there in 5 or 10 years, right? The question of 5, 10, and 10 years. From that, then you can have a conversation with a mentor to say, well, these are the things this is kind of where I want to be. How do I get there? And you can sort of plan a step-by-step way to get there. Okay. Typically, your career goals of 10 years aren't just going to happen. You have to sort of take interim steps and have interim experiences to get you to where those 10 years are, right? That 10-year goal is. I also ask people to do their current job, but also jobs that they've had in the past. And if you have 2 columns on a sheet of paper, on one side is things that I like doing in a job, and then the other side is things that I don't like doing in a job. Take these lists and you write them down and then put them away and then read them every once in a while, whether that's a month, every year, whatever it is, right? Pull them out, and those will change over time. I know myself, having done this exercise, I'll pull out things and be like, I don't know why I wrote that down. I don't enjoy that at all, right? And you cross it off the list, and things do change. But by doing that little bit of exercise, you now have things like, I love working with customers. I love presenting. I love creating videos and multimedia events, right? Those are all things that you get to do in sales. But if you're in a development organization, you may or may not get that experience, right? So then maybe sales is a better fit for you than development, right? So by putting all that together, it gives you a little framework of a place to start with the career mentor and your boss, right? And in your management chain, so that you can have conversations about where should you go next to get you where you want to go and finish up.
That was a great response. I appreciate that. So I'm good. Like I said, I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know you said I probably have a lot to do. Before we wrap this up, I do just want to open up the floor. If there's any other, final thoughts, anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover, anything like that, I just want to make sure you have the floor.
There's a couple of things. One, what costume would you pick?
So not to go too off the rails nerdy, my wife and I used to go to conventions and we would dress up, we would cosplay. So a lot of the things I've wanted to do, I have. But if money was not an issue, I would love just I'm talking like top-notch Batman costume. Just like, straight out of the movie. I think that would be phenomenal. But from a visual physique perspective, I don't think I line up with that, so I don't know how that would look. But if there's a way to make me look the way that I should look in that costume, I think that would be perfect.
They made Michael Keaton look pretty good, so I think you got a shot.
That's true. I mean, he's Michael Keaton though, but I need to start going to the gym and then get a couple inches, and then maybe I could do it. But
that's awesome. No, thank you for having me, Josh. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. So. Going to go ahead and wrap this up. So for those listening, I appreciate you taking the time. And again, I apologize there's no video this time. We're at the conference, so we're doing the best we can do, but appreciate it. Thank you for checking out this episode of Control Alt Story. My name is Josh Spurgeon, and I'm a watsonx technical specialist at IBM. I can also be found under the name Data Nerd Josh on various social media platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn.